faithfully conveying value and interpreting great books worldwide. Hi, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, we're exploring the book How to Write a Great Story. Many folks believe writing is an inborn talent, and whether you can craft a good story really hinges on that gift. But James Scott Bell, the author, argues that writing involves skills that can be learned. Bell is a famous American novelist with over 20 books, like The Last Witness, hailed as a suspense master, and he teaches fiction writing at Pepperdine University. In Bell's view, readers love a work for one reason only: the story is amazing. Drawing on his decades of novel writing experience, he penned this book, How to Write a Great Story. This book skips literary theory and focuses on practical writing techniques, with examples to guide you step by step in storytelling. Right at the start, the author confidently promises that with dedication, anyone can learn to write. It's worth noting that whether it's novels, self-media posts, or other creative writing like ad scripts, they all rely on a good story. The techniques in this book are equally helpful for all such writing. The writing process splits into three main stages, and we'll follow this structure in our interpretation. The first stage is brainstorming a great idea before writing to nail down your story theme. The second stage involves building structure and plotting during writing, and the third stage is revising the manuscript after completion. Now, let's dive into how to decide what story to write before starting in phase one. Brainstorming a killer idea is the first step to a good story. You often need to generate hundreds of ideas, then pick the best few to develop your plot. The author has outlined 20 methods for brainstorming ideas, all simple and fun. The most classic method is the what if game. When you read an interesting story, just ask what if and let possible associations flow. For novelists, this is probably the best little brainstorming game. For example, if you see a news story about a car accident, you can ask yourself, what if all the passengers died? Or what if everyone was injured but a 5-year-old child walked away unharmed? Similarly, whenever you see a TV show or ad, ask what if and let your mind roam freely. Then compile your what if questions into a list, revisit them days later, and pick a few to develop. Your story might just start right here. Another idea generating method is reading news. Open a newspaper or news app, skim through, and find reports that spark your imagination. For example, if planning a suspense novel, check crime reports in social news. Save those articles for future reference. The author also suggests reflecting on topics that recently fired you up. American writer Robert Ludlum once said, "I believe gripping novels spring from the hand of anger." For writers, anger is a highly useful emotion. First, list anger-inducing topics. Big issues like military strategy or abortion, or smaller ones like school rules, as long as they provoke fury. These rage-fueled topics could become your story. Another unusual method is brainstorming a cool book title, because titles liberate your imagination and drive you to find the story. Titles can come from diverse sources: poetry quotes, famous sayings, or religious texts. You could also randomly pick dictionary words, combine them, and make a list. Story ideas will start sprouting from there. For instance, the first line in the novel, Midnight, is Janice enjoys jogging at night. Based on this, what titles come to mind? Night, The Jogger, or Dark Run? Then expand your associations from the title. A brilliant idea might emerge. After settling on a story idea, should you outline before writing? There's no strict rule. Skipping an outline offers freedom, but risks lengthy revisions if you stray off course. Outlining provides initial security against deviations, but might stifle inspiration. You might sacrifice promising plot developments to adhere to the outline, so there's no definitive answer on outlining. The author suggests trying both until you find your preferred method. Well, all right, we've now finished the preparations before starting to write in phase one. Now let's discuss how to write a great story in phase two. We'll cover structure and plot separately. For a story, structure is the skeleton and plot is the flesh. A complete structure and brilliant plot are the two essential elements of a good story. First, let's talk about structure. The author believes a good story structure should consist of 3 acts plus 2 doors. The 3 acts are the beginning, middle, and end, which is the most classic novel structure. This structure originated from ancient Greek drama and is widely used in modern films, making it timeless. So, what exactly does this structure look like? For a novel, the first act should ideally be at the 1/5 mark, the second act is the longest, and the final act ends around the 3/4 point or later. And why a 3-act structure instead of 2 or 4 acts? Perhaps because 3 acts mirror the rhythm of daily life. Birth, life, and death are 3 stages. Every day, waking up, going to work, and coming home are also 3 steps. The 2 doors appear in the 3-act structure, one between the beginning and middle, and another between the middle and end. And these 2 doors explain why the protagonist gets involved in the events and why we keep following them. So, once you walk through these doors, there's no turning back. You must face the upcoming conflicts one by one. Now, let's look at the writing methods for the 3x structure and 2 doors step by step. The main goal of the first act in the 3-act structure is to hook the reader. So, it's crucial to quickly introduce the protagonist, build empathy with the reader fast, and then make something happen to the protagonist. This event doesn't have to be big or explosive. Seemingly harmless things like an unexpected small message or even a bit of gossip can be very engaging. In short, the opening must show the protagonist quickly and disrupt their life right away. In Gone with the Wind, the reader meets the heroine right at the start. The book writes that Scarlett isn't beautiful, but when men fall under her charm, they often forget that. The Tarleton twins are a perfect example. You see, this is Scarlett. She can captivate any man with her charm and enjoys it.
But she'll soon learn the one she secretly loves is about to marry another woman, instantly throwing Scarlett's world into chaos.
Such an opening with a vivid heroine and immediately disrupted life exemplifies an excellent beginning. After writing the first act's opening, examine whether you've achieved these 3 points. 1. Introduce a compelling protagonist. Create an emotional connection between readers and the protagonist. 3. The protagonist's world has been disrupted. Achieve these 3, and you have a solid opening. Next, the protagonist must pass through the first point of no return, entering the second act. This door signifies a turning point. Imagine it as a threshold you can't cross back. Once through this door, the protagonist is thrust into inevitable conflict with no escape. For example, in suspense novels, the first door might appear when the protagonist accidentally discovers the antagonist's secret, leaving no solution but a fight to the death. The protagonist. This door could also be a professional obligation, like lawyers taking cases or police responding to calls. They must see it through. Similarly, moral duties and family bonds can become doors. In the Godfather trilogy, protagonist Michael initially avoids mafia life, but early on his father is targeted by enemy Sollozzo and hospitalized after an assassination attempt. And, to avenge his father, Michael kills Sollozzo. Passing through this door of vengeance, he becomes an outlaw, forced to flee New York. After creating this first door, ask, could the protagonist ignore this change and resume normal life? If not, this door has fulfilled its purpose. Now, the second act's task is crafting scenes that sustain tension, keep readers anxious, and propel the story toward its seemingly inevitable conclusion. The third act. Given this, the author suggests shrouding the entire middle act in death's shadow to create gripping tension. Here, death isn't necessarily physical. It could be spiritual or professional demise. For example, The Catcher in the Rye permeates its narrative with spiritual death's shadow. The protagonist Holden's confusion about survival in his youth resonates deeply with many readers. If Holden can't find a reason to live after psychiatric treatment, his heart will die, maybe even leading to suicide and actual death. The shadow of his career ending is also deeply moving. Huh. Because career is closely tied to the fate of adults. If you set up a scenario where a work mistake could end the protagonist's career, then watch how he seeks chances to turn things around. This makes for a great workplace novel. Under the shadow of death, the protagonist faces dilemmas. Next, design an antagonist. They don't have to be evil, just have solid reasons to create obstacles and drag the protagonist into conflict. You must come up with reasons to bind the protagonist and antagonist together, making them clash endlessly. We'll elaborate on this conflict writing in the plot section later. Having covered the middle act, we now pass through the second door. This door is usually a major clue discovery or severe crisis that drives the plot to the climax ending. For example, in The Godfather Part 1, this second door is Michael's father's death. Michael's father's health declined after being shot, and he died a year later. His death shattered the balance between crime families. Rivals grew arrogant, forcing Michael to become boss and kill to protect his family. After passing this door, the protagonist faces the final battle and choice to end the story. At this point, the novel usually has less than a quarter left. Now, let's discuss the ending. A weak one can ruin a great book.
But a strong ending can save an average book. So wrap up well to leave readers amazed and reflective.
Novels have three basic endings: positive, where the goal is achieved; negative, where it isn't; and an ambiguous ending where it's unclear if the goal was met.
Many classic hero stories end with the hero killing the monster and saving the world, a positive goal achieved ending.
In Gone with the Wind, the heroine Scarlett loses her true love, Rhett, a negative ending where the goal isn't achieved. The Catcher in the Rye employs the third type, the ambiguous ending. We don't know whether protagonist Holden can survive in this world after leaving the psychiatric hospital. A good ambiguous ending must give readers strong emotions, making them reflect and discuss after closing the book. The Catcher in the Rye achieves this. At the end, Holden sits in heavy rain, watching the carousel spin endlessly, like a journey with no destination. After finishing, readers still don't know if Holden found purpose to keep living. We can't help wondering what will become of his life. These three endings can stand alone or be creatively combined. For example, a protagonist might achieve their goal but end negatively, or vice versa, like in Casablanca's hybrid ending. The protagonist fails their goal but gains other positive outcomes. In Casablanca, Rick aims to marry Ilsa, but she's already married to a war hero. At the end, Rick could take Ilsa, but ultimately lets her go. Rick sacrifices his desire, technically failing his goal. But by releasing his obsession with love and returning to the fight, he achieves a greater purpose. This hybrid ending with self-sacrifice keeps the film emotionally powerful until the final second.
The author notes novel writing is exhausting work, so near the end, writers might rush, but don't. Rest a day before crafting the finale, no longer, or inspiration fades, and polish it with passion.
The ending, we've now covered the three-act structure: beginning, middle, end, and the two doors driving the plot. This is storytelling's fundamental skeleton. Next, we'll discuss the second major component: plot. Plot is the story's flesh filling the structural skeleton you've built. The author summarizes a perfect plot formula called the LOCK system: lead, objective, confrontation, knockout, ending. The author emphasizes all plots should follow LOCK, meaning they must feature a distinctive protagonist. The protagonist must passionately pursue a goal, be forced into conflict, and conclude with an unforgettable ending. A story needs a distinctive protagonist. That's the L in the LOCK system, who must possess extraordinary qualities. Imagine someone on a New York street holding a "I need food" sign. Is that compelling? Not really. We've seen plenty like that. But if they wore a tuxedo with a sign saying, "I'll tap dance for food," now that's interesting. The key is that great stories always start with a unique protagonist, forcing us to follow them obsessively. Look, protagonists don't have to be good people. A protagonist making irreparable mistakes and ruining their life can be utterly captivating. Take Clyde in the film They Live by Night. Not a good man, born to devout missionaries but descending into depravity, even betraying his pregnant girlfriend. Why does this character succeed? Because he's not good, yet utterly magnetic. He juggles a love triangle, plots to kill his girlfriend, and faces execution. The author says readers can't look away from such a spectacular life crash. So, how to create unique characters? 3 practical tips. First, visualize their appearance. Describe the first person in your mind. Then, drop them into scenarios to see what unfolds. Second, reinvent someone you know. Take an interesting person but reshape them. Change careers or even genders. Third, read obituaries. They're ready-made character sketches. Extract and adapt interesting parts as your protagonist. Crucially, protagonists aren't static. Their growth adds plot depth. Make them learn and evolve through the novel. Or change through suffering. That's the life insight authors convey.
Like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, always imagining a better life over the rainbow.
But by the end, she realizes there's no place like home. She grows and changes. It's crucial that character transformation has a process. Otherwise, it won't be convincing. The author introduces a specific method in the book. Design a character transformation table covering the story's main stages, mapping out inner changes for each. Say your novel centers on 4 key events in a criminal's life: crime, detention, trial, and imprisonment. Then create a 4-column table. And the first column for crime, briefly describe the character's inner state. Then jump to the last column for imprisonment, how they've changed in prison and what life taught them. Fill the middle columns to show the gradual shift toward that outcome. With the protagonist, we must add a goal. Step 2 in the lock system, the objective. It's the story's driving force, pushing things forward. When the protagonist wants to gain something or escape something, they take action. That's how the story advances. Let's revisit that guy in a tuxedo holding a sign on a New York street corner. Now he ditches the sign, grabs a parachute, and starts scaling the Empire State Building. Our interest in him would skyrocket instantly because, with a goal, the character drives the story, preventing stagnation. Goals usually come in 2 forms: wanting to obtain something or wanting to escape something. In a solid plot, the protagonist has just one main goal that hooks everyone, making them worry constantly. Can they achieve it? So, if you want readers to care about the goal, it must be tied to the character's fate. If the goal fails, the character's life spirals downward. For instance, when the goal involves survival, it grabs even more attention. In most suspense novels, the protagonist faces a death threat right from the start. In The Silence of the Lambs, the heroine Clarice's goal is to stop serial killer Buffalo Bill from murdering innocent victims. To avoid death, the protagonist must fight tooth and nail, keeping readers glued. Having covered the protagonist and objective, let's discuss the third element in the lock system: confrontation. It makes the plot more riveting. We need to learn to create obstacles for the protagonist, making readers worry endlessly and unable to stop. Let's go back to our sign-holding guy. He's halfway up the Empire State Building, so let's create conflict. With non-NYPD plans to stop him by intercepting at the 65th floor. Even worse, a sniper's targeting him from the opposite side. With conflict like this, things get way more interesting. The conflict boils down to the protagonist and antagonist trading blows, dodging then striking back. Through these clashes, the protagonist advances toward their goal while showing thoughts and emotional reactions. Action, thought, reaction, repeat. Controlling these 3 elements lets you control the novel's pacing. Remember, litter obstacles along the protagonist's path to keep readers tense and conflicts gripping. 2 key principles: prolong tension scenes and raise the stakes for characters. Prolonging tension scenes, like danger or suspense moments, isn't hard. Think 24 stretching every minute of action with gripping details. When writing, mentally play the scene in slow motion, frame by frame. Then alternate between action, internal monologue, dialogue, and narration. Linger on each. Say you're writing about a woman stalked by a man who attacks her. Craft it like this.
The woman steps back, bumping into a table. That's action.
A vase topples, shattering on the floor. That's narration.
Then add dialogue.
Don't be scared, the man says. I just want to be friends. The woman thinks, how'd he get in? The door was locked. That's internal monologue. Alternating these extends tension. Even without physical danger, psychological turmoil deserves lingering focus. Make readers endure the character's emotional agony.
Another principle to heighten conflict. Raise the stakes. When characters suffer heavy losses, readers ache.
Take Gone with the Wind. Scarlett desperately wants to marry Ashley, but he's engaged, the Civil War's starting, and he's heading to the front. Their chance together fades. B. Now Scarlett faces even higher stakes. Not only must she defeat her romantic rival, but also endure wartime separation. So, to raise character stakes, train yourself to devise harsher dilemmas. Make the cost increasingly higher, making the story more compelling. The final lock element, knockout ending, was covered in the 3-act structure. Make it powerful and unforgettable. We've now covered the 4 elements of great plotting: lead, objective, confrontation, and knockout ending.
Master these 4 elements, and you'll craft reader-gripping plots.
Regarding plot, the author also advises on managing tension levels. Even thrillers need breathers between scenes. Readers can't endure non-stop tension. Thus, the author created a tension scale to measure each scene's intensity for balanced storytelling. Now, simply rate scenes 0 to 10. 0 means zero tension. 10 is maximum tension overload. Typically, only 1 or 2 scenes per novel should hit 10. A full-length novel usually has 6 major scenes at 8 to 10 intensity, with transitional scenes between 2 to 8. 0-rated sections are sleep-inducing passages. Like lengthy weather descriptions, avoid these. With story ideas, structure, and plotting mastered, you can write a complete story. But this produces a first draft. Now we enter phase 3, revision. Many writers idolize their first drafts, yet revising may be harder than writing them. Revision is essential and typically follows 4 steps. Step 1. Let it rest. Step away for 2 to 3 weeks, completely forgetting the draft.
Step 2. Read the draft carefully, focusing on big-picture questions.
Does the novel start with immediate action? Is the story presented in 3 acts? Do the 2 doors appear at appropriate times? Are the protagonist's stakes high enough?
These questions revisit our structure and plot principles. Mark areas needing revision during reading.
For example, use a check mark for sluggish sections, parentheses for unclear sentences, circles for additions needed, and question marks for potential cuts. Then pause briefly, read relevant materials, and plan major revisions. Step 3. Rewrite based on your notes to create the second draft. Step 4. Refine the second draft. Unlike the first draft's big picture focus, second draft editing involves detail polishing. Trim, delete, or condense scenes unnecessary for plot progression to highlight core elements. Next, polish. Ensure every scene maintains tension and every word shines. Of course, 1 or 2 edits won't suffice. Revision is limitless. Learn to love it. It's writing's essential journey. Each revision makes your story significantly better. You'll stride closer to becoming an exceptional writer. We've now mastered the full story writing process: brainstorming, the timeless 3-act structure, plot's 4 elements, and the 4 revision steps. The author also shared practical formulas like the lock system, 3 ending types, and a tension scale. You might wonder, won't formulaic writing make novels rigid? The author says no. Formulas are like recipes. The same dish differs in each chef's hands. Your task: start now, dare to experiment, and persist relentlessly. Thus, craft great stories. That concludes our interpretation. Find reading notes below the audio. Until next time.